Okay, welcome back after the break. So hope I'm audible as well as visible to you all, right? I'm audible as well as visible to you all, right? So we made an effort in understanding the air pollution. And in that air pollution, we made an effort in understanding the indoor air pollution of India and outdoor air pollution. And also something associated with the programs which are linked to that. And we were discussing about something called as the Central Pollution Control Board. Central Pollution Control Board. And then we made an effort in understanding the ambient air quality. Ambient air quality. Now, the ambient air quality means it is a standard air. It is a standard air where the substances or the particles are in limited number which cannot make much harmful impacts. So such quality of an air, we refer that as an ambient air. It is not referred as luxury. It is the harmless air, the air which can be breathable. The air which can be breathable. We refer that as ambient air quality. So any air will always have minimum value and maximum value of the particles or the substances. If these substances, when they exceed the maximum value which are prescribed, if they exceed the maximum value which are prescribed, then we say it becomes very harmful. It becomes very harmful, right? So this exceeding values, I'll define exceeding values. They are set up by different authorities, and it is not same for all the countries. It varies from country to country. So these standards, they vary from country to country. They always vary from country to country, which are referred as harmful. The one limit which is harmful to India may not be same if you moved on to Africa. It may not be same where you moved on to, say, America. It always varies. It always varies about the quality of air, and we refer that as ambient air. Now, in this regard, we have to gauge that air whether it is feasible for breathing or not, and that can be done only when we make monitoring, only when we assess the amount of the substances which are present there or not. So hence, in the year 1984, we initiated monitoring of the quality of an air. We refer that as National Ambient Air Quality Monitoring. National Ambient Air Quality Monitoring, which was started in the year 1984. Then we renamed that as National Ambient or National Air Monitoring Program. It was renamed as National Air Monitoring Program. Now, for the first time, in 1984 or 86, we made the assessment of four air pollutants. So only four air pollutants were monitored. They are they are sulfur dioxide, nitrous oxide, suspended particulate matter, and respiratory suspended particulate matter. So only four were monitored. Only four were monitored. And then it was extended to 28 stations. And then it was covered to many parts of the India. Right. And then in the year 1994, monitoring was started. After monitoring in the year 1994, we maintained a standards. We maintain a standards. So its standard means that it should be within that value. If any particle, if it exceeds that value, if it exceeds that value, then we will refer that as a not breathable air or pollutant air, which can have a significant impact on the health hazards. And this ambient air quality standards will not be same for all the countries. So these national ambient air quality standards, they vary from country to country. They vary from country to country. US will be having different, India will be having different, African countries will be having different. So they all varies from country to country. They all varies because of the standard of living there, and because of industrial activities in that areas, and because of the amount of the substances which are seen in the proximity. So it is based on economic activity, it is based on the population standard of life, and also based on the activities which are hindered with the technology. And these will not be same, these will not be same. And these national ambient air quality were introduced by keeping air and control of pollution act of 1984. Now this ambient air quality which were mentioned in the year 1994, so they were revised in the year 2009. So what were there in the 1994, they were revised in the year 2004, 2009. And what major changes they did? They initially they were only four pollutants. Initially they measured only four pollutants. Now they added another eight to that. So monitoring was done for 12 pollutants. Monitoring is done for 12 pollutants plus the suspended particulate matter, which was monitored in 1994, as it does not have major threat. So this suspended particulate matter is removed from the monitoring MBNC. And instead of that, we find many other pollutants are added, like respiratory particulate 2.5, etc. So SPM was removed in the new list which was released in the year 2019. So 12 pollutants were introduced. And and instead of land use classification was included. Land use, because in India, if you see, some areas are industries, some areas are residential. In the industries, obviously the particulate numbers will be more, but in the residential areas they will be less. They will be less. So hence we started using land use classification in defining the national ambient air quality standards. So they were industrial area and residential area, they all differ from each other, they all differ in the values, right? And then ecological sensitive areas. So we started monitoring them based on residential, industrial, and ecological sensitive areas, and we started calculating them with real time monitoring by using many apps like suffer suffer. So whenever when you visit railway stations or airports, you will find that digital board. On that, they will give the data of what is the air quality there, what is the proportion of sulfur, what is the proportion of the PM 2.5 in that. So they are all real time monitoring is done by using many apps like suffer, right? Now, what are the 12 pollutants which were introduced? The 12 pollutants were sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, particulate matter 10, PM 2.5, ozone, lead, etc. So these are the 12 pollutants which were measured, and they were measured with a unit called as micrograms per cubic meter. Per cubic meter. Now you don't have to by heart their values. You don't have to by heart their values. But sometimes, if any gas is there, if any pollutant is exceeded, then you have to remember about that particular pollutant. That particular pollutant. Now remember, these standards, they vary from one country to another country, and these standards are also not same as what WHO is having. So World Health Organization will have different standards, India will have different standards, and US will have different standards. So every country will have their own standards. Every country will have their own standards, right? So WHO is having different, India is having different, and developed countries will also having a different, right? So whenever when we take care of this, so this is talks about micrograms, and these nickel and all, so they are something which are calculated in nanograms nanograms, right? So they are significant in the context of your examination. Only you should remember the names. Sometimes they will ask in the facts. So these are the 12 pollutants which are used in monitoring national ambient air quality standards in India. In India. In India. Right. Next. In the year 2014, in the year 2014, we made a strong change. If you put the data and we say if it is 250 grams or 250 milligrams per meter cube or 10 milligrams per meter cube, nobody will understand that. So here the complex data are reduced into simple numerical values. So in the year 2014, we made that we should make sure that all the complex data of the pollutions has to be reduced into simple numerical values which can be easily disseminated or understood by the common people, which can be easily spread or which can be easily understood by the common people by providing numerical characteristics to that. And this is what we created, something called as ambient air quality index, AAI, ambient air quality index. It is a tool to effective communication of air quality status to the people in the very simplified term where they can understood, and this is converting them into numerical values, right? It transforms all the air quality data into single number for nomenclature and color. Nomenclature and color. And here you should remember that ambient air quality index uses 8 pollutants. 12 for national ambient air quality standards, 8 for ambient quality air index. And these 8 pollutants are particulate matter 10, particulate matter 2.5, nitrous oxide, ozone, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, ammonia, and lead. Ammonia and lead. So these are the 8 pollutants which are measured for air quality index. Air quality index. Right. And the initiation of Swachh Bharat mission. So under the Swachh Bharat mission, we provided a uniformity to all the states of India, which is referred as one number and one color and one description for the air quality index. Air quality index. This one, air quality index, ambient air quality index. So we provided one number, one color, and one description. That is, if the value of air quality index, if the value of AQI, if the value of AQI, air quality index, if it is 0 to 50, then we say it is minimal impact. If it is having the value from 51 to 100, then it is satisfactory, which is shown in light green color, and it is having minor breathing problem. And if it is 201 to 300, it is poor, which is represented in orange color, and here it will create discomfort to most of the people. And if it is more than 401, sometimes 600 700 also, sometimes 600 700 also, more than 401, we refer that as severely polluted, and this is dark red color. Dark red color, which affects the healthy people and very seriously. And generally most of the time Delhi experiences this. Delhi experiences this, where the ambient quality index reaches to sometimes 700 800 as well. Is it clear? So one number, one color, one description. So here you come across many facts. So remember these facts rather than elaborating, right? Then SAFAR is System of Air Quality and Weather Forecasting Research. It is India's first air quality checking model, and it is developed by Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology plus Ministry of Earth Science. It is developed by Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology, which is in Pune, plus Ministry of Earth Science, and it provides current and advanced forecast of air quality. So it is giving the data which are referred as real-time monitoring. Real-time monitoring is done. And here, the pollutants which are monitored are not same as the national ambient air quality, not same as air quality index. So here the pollutants are sometimes different. It monitors PM 2.5, PM 10, ozone, ground ozone, ground ozone, carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxide, sulfur oxide, benzene, toluene, xylene, and mercury. So here the pollutants which are measured are totally different. Facts. Facts. So ambient air quality standards 12 pollutants are different. Air quality index, they are different from what you find them. And sulfur measures these pollutants. Sulfur measures these pollutants. So xylene is also a pollutant. It is also a pollutant, like where it is released from many types of paints, etc. Like xylene, which is also a pollutant, right? Sulfur. Then National Clean Air Program of India 2019, which was initiated in the year 2019. Remember that this is city specific. City specific. It means urban areas. Why? Because urban areas are the one which are major contributor of GDP. Cities contribute major proportion of GDPs. Plus, urban areas are the one which are most affected by pollutant, which are most affected by pollution. And hence a program was started which is called as a National Clean Air Program, which is city specific, urban area approach, urban area approach. And this program is a collaborative approach between center, state, and stakeholders, the local people as well. Collaborative approach and participation, central, state, local body, and the stakeholders. Stakeholders means that local people. Many monitoring mechanisms are there. Yes, they are there, but you have to remember them. You have to remember them. So every monitoring is for different type of criterias, right? The major objective of this National Clean Air Program is to reduce the PM 2.5 and PM 10. Reduce the concentration of particulate matter PM 2.5 and PM 10, which is in the year 2017. So 20 to 30% of 2017 volume of PM 2.5 and PM 10 should be reduced by 2024. Should be reduced by 2024. So the target is to reduce the 20 to 30% of the PM 2.5 and PM 10 of base year 2017 by 2024. And this was implemented in 131 initially non-attainment cities. Non-attainment cities. What are non-attainment cities? Non-attainment cities are those cities which are not qualified the national ambient air quality standards. So these are those cities which have not qualified the national ambient air quality standards, which are not attained the national ambient air quality standards. So in these cities, this program was introduced to reduce PM 2.5 and PM 10. Now it started very well. It started very well. People contribution was there, and the results were also good. And as it was started very well, then the government decided that why don't we change the norms, and hence the new targets were fixed where it talked about 40% reduction in the particulate matter in the cities covered under the National Clean Air Program. So the targets were increased. The targets were increased to 40%. Right. Now, this is city specific action, monitoring and reducing the particulate matter 10.5. Right. Now, the targets were increased to 40%. The targets were increased to 40%. after the initial success of the programs, right? Then this program has a portal called as Prana, portal for regulation of air pollution in the non-attainment cities. Now, this is for monitoring the implementation of National Clean Air Program, and also track the physical progress and financial assistance. Also track the physical progress and financial status of Air quality. And when they calculated both the parameters, then they found that in the year 2023, they found that this program, which was started very well, now it started having certain issues. It started to develop certain issues or problems. So what are the issues which are associated with the National Clean Air Program? The first one is ineffective implementation. Ineffective enforcement policy. Ineffective enforcement policy. So which lack the motivation. Which lack the motivation. And hence the people started to move away from the program, which lacked the motivation, and hence the people started to move away, right? It started move away. Then the second aspect is very poor coordination between the Central Pollution Control Board and the State Control Board. So coordination gap between the Central Pollution Control Board and the State Pollution Control Board. No proper coordination to effectively implementing that. So there is a gap between the Central Pollution Control Board and State Pollution Control Board. Very poor gap is seen between those. Then the third one is the program lacked awareness. It lacked awareness. So hence it has been a major problem in implementing this. Is it clear? So this program, which started in the year 2000, which started in the year 2019, it was decided that the program will run for 2026. But the earlier target was to reduce 20 to 30% by 2024. Earlier target was up to 2024. With the new targets, this program will run up to 2026. With the new target, this program will run up to 2026. Is that clear? So initially it was from 2019 to 2024 with the old targets. But the moment when the new targets were introduced, this program will run up to 2026. And hence, they wanted to make an assessment. And this assessment, which has done, has revealed that these are the major problems with that particular part. Is it clear? National Clean Air Program. Now, this is fact, data, right? So World Health Organization, which gave the air quality database of 2022, it complies that. It means it consists of particulate matter and nitrogen dioxide. Particulate matter and nitrogen dioxide, which is regularly updated every 2 to 3 years since 2011. And here it says that entire global population, that is 99%, breathes the quality of an air which is referred as pollutant as per WHO standards. So if we take WHO standard, then 99% of the global population is breathing polluted air. So hence they all vary from one to another. Then it says that the particulate matter, especially 2.5 is capable of penetrating deep into lungs, and hence it can make a significant impact. So hence, in the context of developed country and developing country, PM 2.5 is considered as a major killer because of its deep penetration. Along with the PM 2.5, Along with PM 2.5, it also says NO2, nitrous oxide, is associated with respiratory disease, more specifically asthma. Asthma. So hence, it is told that PM 2.5, PM 2.5, and this nitrous oxide. So they are considered as the big killer, or major pollutants in the global perspective. In the global perspective, PM 2.5 and NO2, major killers, right? And the World Air Quality Report, which was given by IQAR, a Switzerland-based institution, IQAR, it uses PM 2.5 values in micrograms per cubic meter as the reference measures, because PM 2.5 is a major threat, and it has highlighted the data that Aizawl Aizawl in Mizoram has the cleanest air in India, where the PM 2.5 concentration in Aizawl is 11 micrograms per cubic meter, safest one. The city with worst air pollution is Lahore. Worst air pollution is Lahore, followed by China. And Delhi is the fourth most polluted city in the world. Delhi is the fourth most polluted city in the world. Then Chad, Iraq, Pakistan, Bahrain, Bangladesh are the five most polluted countries, and India is eighth most polluted. India is eighth most polluted country in the world, and in indoor, India is number one. In indoor air pollution, India is number one, but combining both, India is eighth in the position. In India, in India, transport industry is responsible for 20 to 30% of PM 2.5. PM 2.5 in the country. Transport industry is releasing large amount of particulate matter 2.5. Is it clear? Right. Then we move on to the statistics of air pollution, its economic impact. Economic impact. Now, whenever air pollutions are there, so economic impact means it will affect the GDP of the states, GDP of the particular states, because they have to spend the money for health aspects, infrastructures, right? So huge money is spent on that. Huge money is spent on that. If you take the data, if you take the data of 2020, we find that Mumbai, every year 25,000 deaths are there, and it spends $3.7 billion. Bangalore, 12,000 deaths, and it spends 1.7 billion. So a good proportion of GDP goes to settling the air pollution issues. And if you take Delhi, it is worst. 54,000 deaths and $8.1 billion are spent. So it means almost all 5 to 6% of its GDP, 5 to 6% of Delhi's GDP goes for settling the health air issues or air pollution issue in the Delhi itself. In the Delhi itself, right? Now, why Delhi is having such types of problems? Why only in Delhi? Why Delhi air pollution is more dangerous? Delhi has become worse than Narak or hell, and life expectancy has reduced to 9.4. It means they are dying premature deaths 9.4 years earlier than what it is prescribed. The condition of the Delhi has become very worst. But if you are reading your current affairs, in the year 2023, Delhi breathed comparatively clean air. Delhi breathed comparatively clean air. Comparatively, I'm not telling that it is clean. Comparative clean air than Mumbai and peninsular region. So it means that last year, that is 2023, the Mumbai and peninsular regions were more polluted than the Delhi. The reason for that, is the phenomenon which took place in the Pacific Ocean. So from 2020 up to 2020, 21, 22, up to 2022, continuously for 3 years. 3 years. In the Pacific Ocean, the Peru current becomes much more colder, which we refer them as La Nina. La Nina. And this is called as triple dip La Nina. Triple dip La Nina. And this triple dip La Nina changed the pressure gradient and which affected the wind patterns. Which affected the wind patterns. And it affected in such a way that these winds which can take the stubble burning or pollutants rather than reaching to Delhi. So pollutants from here, rather than reaching to Delhi from Punjab and Haryana, they crossed that. They crossed that and they reached to the peninsular region. They reached to the peninsular region, more specifically to Mumbai and other areas. So because of the wind patterns, they crossed Delhi and the pollutants reached to Mumbai and peninsular area. So these pollutants bypassed that and they reached to Mumbai. So hence 2023 Delhi did not experience the worst part. It is comparatively more polluted in Mumbai. But what are the major reasons for Delhi air pollution? This is only in 2023. But what are the major reasons for Delhi air pollution? So generally the reasons for Delhi air pollutions are vehicles. So vehicles add large amount of particulate matter 2.5. The vehicles which are running into Delhi, two-wheelers, four-wheelers, all the vehicles. So they add the large amount of PM 2.5. So generally 20 to 40% of PM 2.5 is from vehicles. Then industries. So there in Delhi and proximity, we find many industries are like fertilizer industries. We have oil industries. We have glass industries, right? So many industries are there. So these industries, they emit large amount of the sulfur dioxide, the nitrogen, large amount of pollutants which reaches to the areas. Then Delhi also have large amount of power plants and oil refineries. Power plants the natural gas which uses natural gas. And here we are talking about thermal power plants and oil refineries. So these thermal plants and oil refineries, they also release large amount of pollutants, which again increases in the concentration and becomes the threat. Construction activity. So Delhi, if you take an area, it is a national capital, and here we find large amount of construction activities are there, and these construction activities, they always emit large amount of PM 2.5 and also particulate matter 10, right? So these are from oil refineries, power plants and oil refineries. Apart from this, the stubble burning is major issue in the context of Delhi. So the stubble burning means burning the residue of crop after harvesting. So they are burned in the state of Punjab and Haryana. Because of the wind direction, they reach to Delhi. Because of wind direction, they reach to Delhi. Now, why it has become a major problem and what are the major concerns here? Now, if you take these states, more specifically Punjab and Haryana. So these are the areas, Punjab and Haryana, these are the areas where we find the incidences of first green revolution were there. So these are the areas of green revolution. They are the areas of green revolution. And after green revolution, rice was introduced here. Rice was introduced here. And if you see the geographical and climatic factors, Punjab and Haryana receives less rainfall only due to the western disturbances. So rice is not the natural crop, not the natural crop of Punjab and Haryana, because rice requires more water. It is water intensive. It is water intensive. It needs more rainfall. Rice is a natural crop of deltas. Rice is a natural crop of the coastal areas where heavy rainfalls are there. So rice is not a natural crop of Punjab. But farmers started growing rice because of its economic value. Because of its economic value. That is more cost wise. So they started growing rice. And to provide water to the rice, rainfall was very less. Rainfall was very less. So what they have to do is they have to provide the water through artificial means. We refer that as irrigation. So they provided the water through irrigation, right? So after this irrigation, it means that continuously by groundwater, and this irrigation was done through groundwater. Groundwater, right? Because the rainfall was less, then irrigation and the groundwater was used for irrigation. Now, after harvesting this rice by using groundwater irrigation, they harvest the rice. They harvest the rice. And after that harvesting of the rice, then they sow. Then they do the sowing of their traditional crop called as the wheat. Wheat. So remember, in the context of Punjab, they grow rice as a kharif crop. Kharif crop. And after that, they grow wheat, which is their rabi crop, main crop, which is rabi, main crop. Right. So this is how they made their changes. Kharif followed by rabi. This is what they continued. This is what they continued. Right. Then why the problem started? Why the problem started? Now understand this. As they started irrigating the rice, as the irrigation was required for the growing of the rice. So initially they did not have any problem. But often and often, when over irrigation was required, over exploitation of groundwater was there. Over exploitation of groundwater was there for irrigation, and this made depletion of groundwater in Punjab and Haryana. This made depletion depletion of water table in the states of Punjab and Haryana. Depletion of water table in Punjab and Haryana. Now, after the depletion of Punjab and Haryana water table, governments of Punjab and Haryana, the state governments, they passed an act. State governments, not the national, state governments, they passed an act, Groundwater Legislation Act. Groundwater Legislation Act. And this act was very important here. Based on this act, they fixed the date. They fixed the date of sowing the rice. Fixed the date of sowing the rice in their agricultural fields. Why? Because they used to sow the rice earlier, before the onset of southwest monsoon. Now the date was fixed for sowing of rice, and this date was to coincide with the southwest monsoon entry in the state. Coincide coincide with the entry of southwest monsoon in the states of Punjab and Haryana, so that it will decrease the usage of groundwater. So they used to sow the rice before the onset of southwest monsoon, and after that irrigation was done. So the dates were fixed. And the entry of rice was based on the dates. Now, This delayed the sowing of the rice. So this entire process delayed the sowing of rice, because generally the monsoon enters in India on June 1st. June 1st. By the time it reaches to Punjab, it will take another 15 or 20 days. It will take another 15 or 20 days. Sometimes it can be 10 days later than that. So it means that delay in the sowing of rice was there due to the Groundwater Legislation Act. No farmer can sow the rice before those dates. So these dates were prescribed, mentioned based on the conditions of monsoon entry, and these dates made the rice area or rice to stay in the agriculture field for a longer period of time. Delay in the sowing. So as the rice was delayed, so harvesting will also be delayed. So hence there is delay in harvest. Delay in the harvest. Now when there is delay in the harvest, then there is a less time which was left between the harvesting of rice and sowing of the wheat. So hence there was very less time between harvesting of rice and sowing of the wheat and sowing of the wheat. And this created a very tremendous pressure on the farming communities. Very small gap was there. Now the only way where they can clear their field, only way where they can clear their field is stubble burning, which is fast way of clearing the field for the rabi crops, and hence the stubble burning become inevitable in the Punjab and Haryana episode. Now the stubble burning is not a major issue. In many states of India, the stubble burning is there, but the stubble burning which is done in Punjab is the time factor. The stubble burning is done during the winter season. The time is major problem, and during this winter season the winds are weaker. And they carry the winds to the delhi areas and hence the concentration of pollutants increases in the Delhi because of this particular aspect. So hence the stubble burning is inevitable in Punjab and Haryana, which adds to the pollution in the context of Delhi. Is it clear? Right. So this is all about the stubble burning and why it is inevitable in the context of Delhi. Then next is topography and location of that area. Topography and location of Delhi. If you take Delhi's topography, it is surrounded. It is surrounded by high altitude areas like mountains of Himalayas in the north. In the north, that is northeastern side. So it is very difficult for the air to carry the pollutants outside. So pollutants will not cross the barrier. That is one. Second thing is, this Delhi is not in the coastal areas. If you take the states, if you take the cities like Mumbai or Chennai or Kolkata, so all these are having access to the sea. All these you can take Mumbai, Chennai, or Kolkata. They have access to the sea, and the sea breezes are very strong. Sea breezes are very strong, which can carry the pollutants outside. So hence, they are not much dangerous in the context of these. But if you take the location of Delhi, this Delhi is landlocked. It does not have any sea access. It is like landlocked. And here, no strong winds, no strong breezes, which can carry the pollutants to the other parts, like what we see in the coastal areas. So this landlocked impact will also have a significant aspect. Then Delhi is in the transition. It is in the transition area. Transition of the transports. It means that Delhi is an area where the vehicles keep on moving. Transition area. If you see Mumbai and all, vehicles will stop here. They are destination points. But Delhi is the transition where the vehicles keep on moving. And as the vehicles, they keep on moving, as the vehicles keep on moving, so obviously they will accumulate the pollution there. They will accumulate the pollution here. Then, so surrounding areas, landlocked, and this condition becomes very worst in the winter season because the winds are very weak, and they can't carry the pollutants. So hence its location is one of the major factor where the Himalayas block the pollutants which can be carried to the northern side. It is landlocked and it is in the transition, and the winters will make the conditions more worst where the feeble winds will not make the pollutants to cross Delhi and reach. So these are the topography and location factors. Apart from that, in the Delhi, we always find the issues associated with the municipal solid waste. So we have a concept called as waste to energy, burning waste to energy. So it is where we talk about the solid waste management. In the solid waste management, when we make segregation, after segregation, the waste which cannot be recycled, the waste which are not recycled, we burn them. We burn them, and by burning that, we can use them for generation of energy, even though they are controversial. So we used such part, and this was seen in the Okla waste to energy plant in New Delhi. Now when the municipal solid wastes are burned, so they release large amount of gases because the wastes are burnt with very high temperature. So they are burnt in plasma arc, and large amount of gases are released which can be carcinogenic. It means that which can be threat for the person of cancer. So hence they become the major problem in the context of Delhi municipal solid waste. Apart from that, they released large amount of pollutants which becomes a potential threat. Then other factors like the festivals which are generally seen during October and November, where the winter conditions are there. October and November, winter condition, the wind is not very strong, like the Deepavali, where the crackers, they emit large amount of pollution. Now for that, we are having green crackers which have been introduced, but in spite of green crackers, we find many areas where the traditional crackers are used, which can add large amount of the smoke in the Delhi and its proximities. So hence these are the major reasons for Delhi air pollution. Right now, what are the probable solutions for that? Probable solutions for that. Now, the probable solutions for that is the one is the decomposer capsules which were introduced. We refer them as PUSA capsule, and these were introduced when they are referred as the fungal capsules. Fungal capsules. So these capsules, they were mixed with the water, and the solution was made, and this solution was sprayed. This was sprayed, and this solution which was sprayed, it will make the the residues soft and decompose. It will make the residues soft and then decompose. And the problem is it took long days, 20 to 25 days. That was a major problem, right? That was the major problem, right? So 20 to 25 days were there. Then second one is on the orders of Supreme Court. On the orders of Supreme Court, the Delhi government initiated anti-smog towers and anti-smog guns. And here you should remember the technology will not ask. So they will suck large amount of polluted air through the fans, and then they are filtered. Thousands of filters are fitted. Thousands of filters are fitted. And after that, after the filters, the air will be clean and then it is released out. This is how the anti-smog towers will work. And the capacity, what they told is that they are having the capacity of purifying 25 cubic meters of air per second, per second. But but the recent data and recent calculations which were done by scientists, which were done by scientists, and also Delhi Pollution Control Committee, DPCC, Delhi Pollution Control Committee. It made an assessment and it says that the anti-smog towers and anti-smog guns are not feasible for Delhi's air pollution. They are not feasible. Not feasible. They can do only small areas, but not the areas like Delhi. And apart from that, the cost of this anti-smog is also very high. It is more than 20 crore. More than 20 crore. Right. So cost wise also, and their effective is also not the same. So hence they say that they are they are feasible for other parts, but for Delhi they are not feasible because of their cost perspective and because of their capacity, which cannot enhance the quality of air in the larger areas of Delhi. Then hydrogen based technology. So this hydrogen based technology, now you don't have to write in detail about that. So wherever hydrogen based technology, that is clean energy based, clean energy perspectives are there. Now this hydrogen based technology, when it is used, the end products of the hydrogen based technology will be always water, always the water. So its end product will be water, and this water will not have any much impact. So its end product is water, which do not have much pollution impacts. Now, you don't have to write in detail, just mention the headline hydrogen based fuel technology, where the end product is water, is not harmful. Then they introduced Delhi Electric Vehicle Act. And this Delhi Electric Vehicle Act, which was introduced in the year 2020, right? So, the major idea of this electric vehicle is to provide cheaper vehicles through the act, provide them cheaper vehicles to the people, and also provide financial assistance to purchase the electric vehicles. And also they made a policy that exempt them from road tax, exempt the electric vehicle from road tax. This is what you should remember regarding Delhi electric vehicles. Now, very important one is the graded response action plan. Now, Supreme Court in the year 2016 said to the state government that when the conditions in the Delhi become very worst, when the conditions in the Delhi become very worst, then you have to have an emergency plan. You have to create an emergency plan. And this emergency plan should be applied when the conditions become very worst in the Delhi. And this emergency plan, which was created, which was formed after the intervention of Supreme Court, is referred as the graded response action plan. Graded response action plan. And whenever the pollution reaches to the level, then they implement this graded response action plan. They implemented this graded response action plan. So it is implemented at four stages. It is implemented at four stages. The stages are stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and stage 4. Now here you should remember that this graded response action plan is implemented based on measuring the quality of only PM2 point and PM2.5, based on PM2.5 and PM10. Only these two. Only these two. And second one is this graded response action plan is applied only when the conditions become worst. It is applied only when the conditions become worst. It means that you can't apply it before. You can apply only when the conditions have become worse. You can't apply them before. Remember these 2 points. Remember these 2 points. It is about PM 2.5 and PM10 monitoring only. And this graded response action plan is applied only when the conditions become worst. Only after the conditions have become worst. Now understand the stages. The stages where if the PM 2.5 and PM10, if it exceeds to 61 micrograms or 100 micrograms, then the stage 1 is applied. And in the stage 1, mechanized sweeping, washing up the roads is done. Or enforcement ban on the firecrackers, increased scrutiny vehicles has done. So stage 1. Now stage 2, when the PM 2.5 is above 121 micrograms, or when the PM10 is more than 355. Now, what activities it does? Ban on diesel generators, parking fee is increased to 3 to 4 times, then stop the coal and firewood eateries, urge people with respiratory or cardiac to stay in their home. Then the stage 3 was introduced when the PM 2.5 is above 250 and PM10 is above 430. And the activities which were taken is increase the frequency of road cleaning, shut down the bricks kilns, then restrict on the operations of coal-based plants in the national capital region. So that is stage 3. Then stage 4 was introduced when the PM 2.5 is above 300 and PM10 is above 500. Now, what steps are taken? Ban on entry of trucks except essential items, halt construction work, stop them, and then begin the odd and road schemes for the private vehicles. So these are referred as the graded response action plan. Graded response action plan, which were started from 2017, right? But the major change which was introduced was in the year 2022. These graded response action plan was revamped in 2022. Now, what changes they were introduced? Initially, it was having only PM 2.5 and PM10. PM10. Now, instead of PM 2.5 and PM10, now Delhi pollution graded response action plan is based on air quality index. Air quality index, and air quality index consists of 8 pollutants which are measured. 8 pollutants which are measured. So this you should remember now. Initially only PM 2.5 and PM10 were there, but now it is based on air quality index, not PM 2.5, not PM10, but on air quality index, which has 8 pollutants. Now the stages were also, it is based on the condition. If the air quality index is 200 to 300, then the stage 1 is applied. If the quality is 300 to 400, then the stage 2 is applied. The stages are same. The stages are same, but the criteria are different. The criteria are different. If it is 400 to 500, then stage 3. And then if it is more than 500, then stage 4 is applied. So this is the one major change. Now, second thing is, now the revamped graded response action plan says that this action plan can be applied before the event. So it can be applied before. It can be before. So we refer that as preemptive, before the conditions has become worse. So it is a precautionary measure. Precautionary. If the authorities feel that maybe in another 5 days the pollution is becoming worse, so they can apply before the condition. They can apply before the conditions. So we refer them as preemptive, prior, right? So now what other things? Ban on construction activities except essential projects under severe category. So what is severe category? This is the severe category. Severe category. Now next it says that ban on industries running on dirty fuels. Dirty fuel means fossil fuels. Fossil fuels on construction and demolition of activities in the linear projects such as highways, flyovers, right? So they talked about only the essential activity should be allowed, not all. Restriction on four-wheeler vehicles. restriction on four-wheeler vehicles which are having Bharat stage 3 petrol and Bharat stage 4 diesel vehicles during severe category. So they are not allowed. They are not allowed. Only Bharat stage 6 are allowed. Only the Bharat stage 6 are allowed. Then reduce the working staff. That is, work from home is initiated when the conditions become severe plus. So these are the points which you should remember in the revamped graded response action plan of Delhi. Is that clear? Okay. Graded response action plan of Delhi. Plus. Apart from that, they also talk about co-firing of coal and biomass. Co-firing means mixing. It is mixing of the biomass. Biomass means the stubble with the coal. Mixing the biomass or stubble with the coal, either in the same chamber or in different chambers, or in the different chambers. And when you burn them, then the amount of smoke which is released by them, the amount of smoke which is run by co-firing means burning combined of coal and biomass like stubble. Here, it will help in reducing the pollutants. 73% of particulate matters will be reduced, 47% of CO2 will be reduced, 5% of NOx, 98% of SO2, and 99.6% of carbon monoxide will be reduced. So it will reduce all these pollutants when there is co-firing. When there is co-firing, it works very well in the context of Delhi's. And this was initiated by the Central Electric Authority of India and the Coal Energy of Japan. So they proved that this is one of the innovative measures in reducing the Delhi pollution. And this showed very well. And that is the reason why the government which introduced its biofuel policy, government when it introduced its biomass policy, not biofuel, biomass policy, it has agreed that co-firing it has agreed that co-firing can be allowed in thermal power production. Up to 5% of co-firing is allowed. Up to 5% of co-firing will be allowed by 2024 and 25. So 5% of co-firing is allowed here, right? So which can reduce the pollutions. Apart from that, what else it does? It does two more activities. It provides economic support to the farmers, because the power generators or the power industries, they purchase the stubbles, so it will create a viable market. So it means money to the farmers, for selling the stubble. So instead of burning, you can sell them. Plus, it generates the employment in the rural economy, because the people has to accumulate them and transport that to the industry. So it performs these two: employment and viable market in the rural economy. In the rural economy. So that is significant with reference to the co-firing. Co-firing. Is that clear? And apart from that, they also talk about many other, right? Sometimes they talk about cloud seeding. That is artificial rain, right? And apart from that, you can also give that changing the cropping pattern, that is crop diversification, changing the cropping pattern. So that can also provide a solution to the Delhi pollution. That changing or crop diversification in and Haryana, Punjab and Haryana, which can also be one of the probable solution in the context of the Delhi air pollution. Right. So these are referred as probable solutions. Probable solutions. Right. Now next we move on to something called as water pollution. Now, what is water pollution? It is contamination of water. Contamination of water. Right. So when we say balanced approach, it means that working very well with changing the crops. That's what I told you. Changing the crops. Instead of rice, you grow millets. Instead of that, you grow oil seeds, which can provide economic benefit also, and groundwater is also not destroyed. So such win-win situations you have to take up. Such win-win situation you have to take up. Is it clear? Then, when we talk about water pollution, we always define them into two types: point source and non-point source. So what are point source? When the discharge is from single source. When the discharge is from single source, we refer that as the point source. And when it is discharged from the single source, it can be easily identified. It can be easily identified because it is very specific and identifiable. It is specific and identifiable. So hence, when it is specific and identifiable, so easy for treatment. That is water treatment and control. Easy to treatment and easy to control. Now the second type is what we refer them as non-point source. What is non-point source? When the pollutants are reaching to the water bodies from many sources, so discharge from multiple points. Discharge from multiple points. Right, multiple points. Discharges are there, and here they are all scattered, and hence it is difficult to monitor and difficult to control. Difficult to monitor, difficult to monitor, and also difficult to control. Difficult to control here. So point source and non-point source. Apart from that, we can classify the water pollution into three categories. That is marine pollution, ocean or marine pollution. This is marine pollution or ocean pollution, or surface pollution. Surface means rivers, lake, ponds, etc. We refer that as surface pollution, or we refer them as groundwater pollution or subsurface pollution. It is mainly due to leakages. It is mainly due to leakages. Leakages either from the septic tanks in the household. We have many areas like latrines and all. So from there, leakage from the septic tanks. Leakage from metal and coal mines, mining sectors. Leakage from oil, gas, and the flow from agricultural fields, the fertilizers what we use, and leakage from the landfills. So landfills are where, in the context of solid waste management, unsegregated matter, unsegregated waste we throw outside. Unsegregated waste which is thrown outside, we dump that, and from that dumping, slowly the percolation of liquid goes down, and we refer that as the ground pollution or groundwater pollution. So three ways are there: marine pollution, surface pollution, and groundwater pollution. Three major types of the water pollutions are there. Now next is, they are very simple. Next is, what are the causes of water pollution? So causes of water pollution is oil spills and accidents. Oil spills and accidents, generally they are due to leakages from the tanks, or accidents where it takes place in the oceans. So during the accidents, large amount of chemicals, and oils are also spilled. And this is leakage. This was in Turkey, and this type we have seen in Russia. Large amount of oil spills and accidents takes place, which spread on the surface of water, and this will affect the aquatic life. It will affect the aquatic life and coastal ecosystem. Coastal ecosystem. Right. Second one is that sewage and wastewater. Sewage and wastewater, which is sent or which is released to the rivers without treatment. Without treatment. The sewage and wastewater, which is added to the rivers without any treatment. Mining activities. So sometimes when we wash the ores or during the process, many chemicals are used. And these chemicals are washed by the water and they reach to the ground when they are washed. So that add to the water bodies. Mining activities, agriculture. So when we talk about agriculture, it is due to the fertilizers. It is due to the fertilizers, pesticides, etc., which are used in the agricultures. Now, whenever when there is a rainfall or when there is a irrigation, so these reaches to the neighboring ponds or lakes or rivers. Lakes. Then marine dumping. So marine dumping is a phenomenon which is seen in many countries where they carry the waste. They carry the waste in a ship and they move up to 8 or 10 kilometers from the coastal area, and then they dump in the ocean or sea, and we refer that as marine dumping. It can be developed or any developing country where the dumping is done after that 8 or 10 kilometers. Now this dumping can also have a major threat, which can also have e-waste. Electronic waste can also be there, which can be a potential threat for the marine organisms, to the marine organism. Then leakage from the landfills. So this is what the landfills are. This is the landfills. So unsegregated waste which is dumped will have the leachate which moves downward. Then acid rains, which can also have an impact on the marine pollution. So these are referred as the probable reasons for the water pollution. Probable reason for water pollution. Right. Now the next topic here is something called as eutrophication. So what is eutrophication? Eutrophication means, understand, it is enrichment of water body. It is enrichment of water body by nutrients. By nutrients. Enrichment of water body by nutrients. Now, what exactly it means? So we have lakes. Many lakes are there, and in that it has large amount of water. Now, in the proximity of the lakes, we have agriculture sector. We have industries, urban areas, settlements, etc. So through these, from the agriculture, the fertilizers are washed and they reach into lake, maybe due to heavy rainfall, which will carry nitrogen, phosphorus, etc. That is NPK. NPK. Now, from the industries, the pollutants which reaches here, so they may consist, along with other pollutants, they may consist of nitrogen and phosphorus also. The urban areas, when the untreated water reaches here, so they also consist of different pollutants. Among them, it can also have nitrogen or potash. So these nutrients which are pollutants, but when they reach to the ponds or lakes, so this pond or this water body, it become enriched. enriched with the nutrients, enriched with the nutrients. And whenever when the enrichment of the nutrients are there, it makes uncontrolled growth, this enrichment of the nutrients. Now remember here the term is any water body when it is enriched with the nutrients, we refer that as eutrophication. We refer that as eutrophication. Now what is impact of eutrophication? What is impact of eutrophication? What happens when there is eutrophication? What happens when there is eutrophication? Now whenever a lake which has become eutrophied, so that lake will have uncontrolled growth of algae. That lake will have uncontrolled growth of algae. And this uncontrolled growth of algae, we refer that as algal bloom. We refer this as algal bloom. So eutrophic leads to algal bloom. Eutrophic leads to algal bloom, uncontrolled growth of algae, algal blooms. Now, what happens when the algal bloom is there? What happens? What happens when the algal bloom happens? Now, any lake, any water body where algal bloom has occurred, so this area will be completely covered by algae. So, when it is completely covered by algae, what will happen to that region? We will always find that sunlight will not move downward. So it will not allow sunlight to reach. It will not allow the sunlight to reach downward. To reach downward. That is first thing. Second one is it will not allow the oxygen to reach downward. So it will not allow the oxygen to enter water. Enter water. So it means that it will block the sunlight and it will block the water, the oxygen which can enter here, right? So when there is no sunlight, the photosynthesis will decrease in the water body. The photosynthesis will decrease here, and it will not allow the oxygen also to enter here. So slowly this water, where the photosynthesis is decreased, when the oxygen is also not entering there, slowly we will find the concentration of oxygen will decrease in this area, decrease, and we refer this as hypoxia. We refer that as hypoxia. That is the shortage of oxygen. Shortage of oxygen. Right. So algal bloom will lead to hypoxia. Will lead to hypoxia. Now what happens when the hypoxia has occurred here? So that lake where the hypoxia has occurred, right? So that water will be having shortage of oxygen. So oxygen will be less here. Oxygen will be less here. So in that case, we find the dead algae or dead species like fish, dead algae and lead species are there, which is referred as organic pollution, organic matter. The dead algae and the species which are organic matter. Now these organic matters are decomposed by bacteria. These organic matters are decomposed by bacteria. Right. Now they decompose this organic by using oxygen. By using oxygen. So already that lake has shortage of oxygen, and these bacteria are using that for decomposing of the dead organic matter. So that water body which has hypoxia condition will become severe scarcity of water. So that area will be having severe scarcity of oxygen, or severe shortage of oxygen will be there. The concentration of oxygen which is depleted has become very, very rare, and we refer this as a condition of anoxia. We refer this as anoxia. Severe shortage of oxygen. We refer that as anoxia. Now, when the anoxia has taken place, severe shortage of oxygen is there, then the marine species there, the species there like fish, etc., fish, etc. So they will have shortage of oxygen. They will have shortage of oxygen. So they will feel suffocation. Suffocation. Second, as there is shortage of energy, as there is shortage of oxygen, they don't have energy to move the place, leave the place. They don't have sufficient energy. They do not have sufficient energy to leave the place. To leave the place. They do not have energy. So this will lead to death of large marine organisms there. Large species there. We refer that as dead zone. Dead zone. So this is entire process which is seen from eutrophication to dead zone. So eutrophication means enrichment of nutrients. Eutrophication leads to algal bloom. Algal bloom leads to hypoxia, and hypoxia in turn converts into anoxia. And anoxia creates the dead zones in the highly eutrophic lakes there. Highly eutrophic lakes. So this is the process which you should understand, right? Remember this. This is called as the dead zone, where lakhs of the species will die. And this is in the Gulf of Mexico. Example, Gulf of Mexico, where large amount of species have died. So remember, eutrophication leads to algal bloom. Algal bloom leads to hypoxia, and hypoxia will lead to anoxia. And this anoxia will create what we refer them as dead zones, where large amount of marine organisms are there. And in these dead zones, their productivity is very less. Their productivity is very less, is very low. And hence we refer them as biological deserts. We refer them as biological deserts, right? So this is seen not only in Gulf of Mexico, we can find in India also. In the Arabian Sea also we find that. In the Arabian Sea also we find the dead zones or biological desert. So the reports which are given recently, they say that most of the world's marine waters are converting into dead zones. Most of the world's coastal areas are converting into dead zones. Take India and all. So most of the oceans are converting into dead zones. Dead zones. Now here, the moment when you're writing dead zones, you should remember that there are two reasons for dead zones. One is due to climate change that I have discussed earlier, and the second one is due to pollution. Pollution. So two ways we find that is called as the dead zones, right? So when we say that anoxia is a severe condition. Sometimes they die due to hypoxia. Severe shortage of oxygen, we refer that as anoxia. So please understand that. So hypoxia means shortage of oxygen. Anoxia means extreme severe of that. So during hypoxia also they will die some. And anoxia means very difficult for their survival. Very difficult for their survival. So when you're writing your answers, please remember the difference between hypoxia and anoxia. Hypoxia and anoxia, right? And entire thing I have explained there. What is eutrophication, what is algal bloom, and what is hypoxic condition. I have explained all these. So hence in the recent observation they say that most of the oceans are becoming dead zones, right? Arabian Sea, we find the oxygen is not available because of the pollution. Because of the pollution, the pollutants which are entering into that areas. So I told you these two reasons are there. In Japan, it is mainly due to climate change. In Japan, mainly due to climate change. So both are responsible for what we call them as the eutrophication and dead zones, right? The hypoxic condition is responsible for death of many, and we refer them as dead zones or biological deserts. So remember, hypoxia, worst condition is anoxia. Worst condition is anoxia, right? Now, biological oxygen demand and dissolved oxygen, two terms we should remember. biological oxygen demand and dissolved oxygen. So dissolved oxygen and biological oxygen demands are two important entities. Biological oxygen demand is the demand made by bacteria, the demand made by the bacteria for oxygen to decompose the waste organic waste here, right? So it is the demand which is made by the bacteria for organic waste. So it means it defines the pollution level in the water body. Pollution level in the water body. If the demand is more, if the bacteria are demanding more, it means that the water is most polluted. If the demand is more, if the demand is more, then the water is more polluted. Higher the demand for biological oxygen demand, higher is the water polluted. Lower the demand, lower is the pollution. So hence, if the demand is very less, if the demand is less, then we say it is very good. If the demand is very high, if the biological oxygen demand is very high, then it is extremely polluted water. Extremely polluted water if the demand is more. Then dissolved oxygen, it is the amount of oxygen which is dissolved. It is amount of oxygen which is dissolved in the water, dissolved in the water. And this is very necessary for, it is very necessary for the organisms. It is very necessary for the organisms. And if there is a shortage of, if there is shortage of dissolved oxygen, then it will lead to hypoxia. It will lead to hypoxia. So hence, any water, you should remember that it should have low biological oxygen demand and higher dissolved oxygen. Any water which is suitable for drinking and other activities, it should have low biological oxygen demand and it should have high dissolved oxygen. It should have low biological oxygen demand and high dissolved oxygen. Then only we say it is feasible for drinking or any type of economic activities. Is that clear? Now next, we move on to a program called as Namami Gange. So Namami Gange is a program which was started in the year 1986 with the Ganga Action Plan. So it is treating pollution in the Ganga River, treating pollution in the Ganga River. So in 1991, it included its tributaries, that is Yamuna, Gomti, Damodar. And in the year 1996, sorry, 1994, this was extended to all the rivers of India, extended to other rivers of India. And then we refer them as the National River Conservation Plan, extended to rivers of peninsula also, cleaning aspect, right? And then to implement this National River Conservation Plan, to implement NRCP or to strengthen the NRCP, in the year 2009, we set or we established National Ganga River Basin Authority to strengthen the National River Conservation Plan. In the year 2009, National Ganga River Basin Authority was set up. Was set up. Its major objective was, to implement the policies. Second, pool the resources. Pool the resources. Resources means financial resources. Financial resources. See, chemically oxygen demand means along with organic, chemical pollutants also are taken. So COD means along with organic. It also talks about the inorganic pollutants called as chemical pollutants also. So COD means inorganic pollutants are also included here, right? So pooling the resources, implementing, and also to make the proper coordination, in implementing the program, in implementing the program. Yes, it is very good to have COD. It is very good to have COD, but at least we should have BOD. It is very good to have COD, but it is at least it is the most feasible type, most feasible. So generally we calculate the pollution based on biological oxygen demand, right? It is very good to have COD, but at least you should have the biological oxygen demand, which should be less here. So National Ganga River Basin Authority, where Prime Minister is chairman of that, Prime Minister is chairman of that, and the states in which Ganga is flowing will be members of that. Ganga is flowing will be members of that. So National Ganga River Basin Authority was set up to implement the National River Conservation Plan in the year 2009. In the year 2009, then we made a strong change. We made a strong change. In the year 2011, we restructured the National Ganga River Basin Authority. And this National River Ganga Basin Authority was, was replaced, replaced by the National Mission for Clean Ganga. It was replaced by the National Mission for Clean Ganga. So National River Ganga Basin Authority was replaced by the National Mission for Clean Ganga in the year 2011 with two objectives. And the two objectives are, the first one is abatement of pollution and rejuvenation of Ganga, that is decreasing its pollution and rejuvenation. It means that pure water should be there, clean water should be there, and generally we refer that as Nirmal Dhara. Nirmal Dhara. Nirmal Dhara. Then maintain E flow for Ganga. E flow means environmental flow. Environmental flow. Right. Now, what is this environmental flow? So, river is an ecosystem. River is an ecosystem. Right. So it means that many living organisms depends on the river. Many living organisms depend on the river. Now, to make security to them, to survive them, to keep them live, the river has to maintain certain minimum flow, certain minimum flow of water has to be maintained in the river. You can't divert 100% of water. You can't divert 100% of water for irrigation or drinking. Minimum amount of water should reach from source to the mouth of a river. Mouth, it means to the ocean where they meet or to the sea. So it should have to maintain the minimum amount of flow. Minimum amount of flow. Now, when the water is flowing, it will not accumulate the pollutants. It will carry the pollutants. It will carry the pollutants. So hence, the Ganga River has to maintain the minimum E flow. Minimum E flow, right? And this is referred as uninterrupted moving of the Ganga. We refer this as Aviral Dhara. Aviral Dhara, uninterrupted movement. Uninterrupted movement. So two objectives were included in the year 2011. In the year 2011, and in the year 2014. In the year 2014, the Ganga Action Plan was renamed, or it was named as the Namami Gange. Named as Namami Gange. Now, Ganga River, Ganga River, it flows in certain states. How many states it flows? It flows in 11 states. It flows in 11 states. And if you take its territories, 79%, 79% of its basin, 79% of its basin is in India. Is in India. It flows through 11 states, and 79% of basins are there in India, and remaining is in other states. Sorry, remaining is in other countries. So at least this data you should remember. This data you should remember. right? Then National Ganga Council was created in the year 2016. After that, Namami Gange episode. After that, Namami Gange episode. So, National Ganga Council was created in the year 2016, and the first phase, the first phase was till December 31, 2021, and the second phase has started. The second phase has started after that from 2022, and in the second phase, we have taken the World Bank loan, assistant from the World Bank, and this second phase where the World Bank assistance is given of 3,000 crore rupees. And this second phase of the Namami Ganga is not in all the 11 states. It is applied in only 5 states. Only 5 states. And these 5 states are UP, Uttarakhand, Bihar, Jharkhand, and West Bengal. So it is applied only in these 5 states. The World Bank assisted scheme. World Bank assisted scheme. It is applied only in these 5 states. And and when you talk about the budgetary allocation, the budgetary allocation, budgetary allocation in the second plan, which is around 22,500 crores, and this will be applied in all the states, and this will be till 2026. Till 2026. So this is all about Namami Gange and its present statistics. Present statistics. Is it clear? Namami Gange and its present. Yes, it is in the form of loan. It is in the form of loan. Credit loan which is given. Perfect. Okay. Now, the 8 main pillars of Namami Gange are sewage treatment plants. That is, treatment of water is done. Water treatment is done. Then river surface cleaning is done. Then afforestation, planting more trees, monitoring the pollutants which are released by the industries. Then riverfront development, that means that here we find large amount of crematoriums. Modernize them, modernize them so that they should not have much impact on the river pollution, right? Then biodiversities, increase the biodiversity so that they can reduce the impact of pollution. Both the phases are sponsored by World Bank. See, the second phase is World Bank, first phase is not. I mentioned that second phase by World Bank, right? Then creating public awareness, that is community participation. Community participation. Is that clear? Yes, they can also be used in water treatment. They can also be used in clean water treatment. But these are the 8 pillars of the main or Namami Ganga program. 8 pillars of Namami Ganga program. Is it clear? Then bioremediation. What is bioremediation? It is the process which uses mainly the living organisms in controlling the pollution or reducing the pollution. It is using of the living organisms in reducing or abating the pollution. Abating pollutions. So living organisms means it can be microorganisms or it can be plants. Microorganisms or it can be plants. We refer them as bioremediation. And this bioremediation can be two types. It can be in situ or it can be ex situ. It can be in situ or it can be ex situ bioremediation. Now, what are in situ and what are ex situ type? Right. In situ means the treatment is done in their area. The treatment is done in their area. They are not taken outside. Ex situ means the treatment is done out of them. It means that they are taken out of that area and they are treated outside. We refer them as ex situ, right? So in situ means in their site, in their areas. Ex situ means out of that. You dig that out and then you treat that outside. We refer that as ex situ type of treatments. Now, in the context of any pollutions to be reduced, two things you should remember. When it is organic pollutants, you need bacteria to that. You need bacteria to that. And what is the second thing which is required to reduce the organic decomposition? Bacteria, plus you need oxygen to that. Bacteria and oxygen. Oxygen. Now, based on these bacteria and oxygen, we have different types of the pollutants to be reduced there. And these are remember, the bioventing, bioaugmentation, biospurging, land farming, etc. Now, what happens in bioventing? So, bioventing is a type of the bioremediation where we find the pollutant area has bacteria. The pollutant areas are having bacteria, but they don't have oxygen. So you will supply oxygen to the affected areas. So we will supply oxygen to the affected areas. Affected areas. We refer that as bioventing. It is in situ type. In situ type. You are supplying the oxygen. You are supplying the oxygen there. Yes, it can be hydrocarbon or it can be any type. So it is in situ type. You are supplying only oxygen. Now there are certain areas where you don't have bacteria, where there are no bacteria. So hence, to clean that pollutants, what you have to do? You have to supply the bacteria. You have to supply the bacteria to that areas, and also you have to supply oxygen. Augmentation means supply. So you will supply bacteria and oxygen to the site where it is polluted. Where it is polluted. And these bacteria, what you are supplying, they can be naturally occurring bacteria. You can supply naturally occurring bacteria, or you can supply genetically modified microorganisms. You can supply genetically modified bacteria or microorganisms. Microorganisms. We refer that as the bioaugmentation. So both are supplied, and even this is also in situ. Even this is also in situ. Now there are certain areas where the pollutions is done, more specifically oil pollution. More specifically, oil pollution is there. The surface area where the oil is accumulated. So in that case, we use the oxygen which is pushed downward below the water table. The oxygen is pushed below the water table with pressure. The oxygen is pushed below the water table. So this is called as water table, right? Sorry, this is water table and this is oil pollutant. And this is water table. Water table. Now here the air is pushed below the water table with pressure. With pressure. So that the volatile compounds will reach to the upper portion and it will increase in the oxygen part, and this oxygen concentration which is increased there will make the degradation of the pollutants there, and we refer that as biospurging. So here, by the pressure, volatile organic compounds are flushed upward. they are pushed upward, where they are acted upon by bacteria. They are acted upon by bacteria, and then they will reduce the contamination in that regions, right? So all these will boost degradation. It will boost the degradation. We refer that as biosparging. Again, this is in situ. This is in situ. Now, land farming, this is ex situ type. This is ex situ type. Now, when we talk about the land farming, so in the land farming, the contaminated soil, if this is a soil which is contaminated, so the contaminated soil is excavated and taken out. Excavated and taken out. And it is sprayed outside. Excavated and taken out. And it is spread outside. Taken out and it is spread outside. And continuously it is supplied with air, water, and bacteria. It is supplied with air, water, and bacteria, by which the pollutants are decreased. And we refer that as land farming type of bioremediation. Land farming type of bioremediation. It is where we remove them by using all these. Sometimes you will supply nutrients also to the bacteria, which can remove the pollutants there, right? Then composting bioremediation. Now, in this composting bioremediation, we generally bring together the contaminated soils with organic waste like the dead plants and animals, which we refer them as the manures. Which we refer them as manures. So the contaminated soil is brought together with the manures or the agriculture waste, by which it is reduced into its biodegradation past. And generally, we refer them as, when we use earthworms, we refer that as vermicomposting. Vermicomposting, when we use the earthworms. In biosparging, when we apply pressure in the water table, volatile organic compounds, VOCs, they will reach to the surface. The pollutants will reach to the surface. Volatile organic compounds or the pollutants will reach to the surface. Right. So this is some rough idea about the contamination. Now, when plants are used, when plants are used, using of the plants for reducing the pollution, we refer that as phytoremediation. We refer that as phytoremediation. And generally, these plants are used for reducing the pollutions, more specifically the metallic pollutions, like mercury, etc. Metallic or heavy pollutions or heavy pollutants. And most common, most common plants, most common plants which are used in the phytoremediation, most common plants which are used are the willow plants, Indian grass, sunflower. So these are the most common phytoremediations are there. Indian grass, sunflower, then Indian mustard, Indian mustard. Algae are also used. Then poplar tree. So these are the most common. These are the most common which are being seen. Most common, the phytoremediations are there. Now, what happens in the phytoremediation is, in a very simple term, they absorb the pollutants from the ground, or they absorb the pollutants from the water bodies, and they will store them either in the roots or in the shoots, or they will make some chemical reaction and they convert the hazardous into less hazardous and they release them to the atmosphere. Right, understand this. They absorb the pollutants either from the land or from the water, and then they store them either in the roots or in the shoots, roots or in the shoots, or sometimes or sometimes they convert these dangerous pollutants by some chemical reactions, and they make them less harmful, and they release them in the atmosphere, which may not be harmful in any condition. So such types of activities, we refer them as phytoremediation. Remediation, right? So they take up through the roots. Sometimes they store in the roots. And when they store in the roots, we refer them as the phytostabilization. Phytostabilization, when they store in the roots. Limited mobility and availability of materials in the roots. Then sometimes when they accumulate in the stems or the shoots, we refer that as phytoextraction. So this is roots, this is in the stems. Now sometimes when they transform the metals, they break down the or transform the metals into less harmful ones. We refer that as phytodegradation. Phytodegradation. Sometimes they convert the metals into volatile form and subsequently release them into atmosphere through the leaf surfaces. Through the leaf surfaces, we refer that as photovolatilization, right? And sometimes they sequester the metals from the water. We refer them as phytofiltration. Phytofiltration. Shoots means the trunks. The trunks, we refer them as the shoots. Is that clear? So this is how the phytoremediation is done. And these are the statements of that: phytodegradation, phytostimulation, phytovolatilization, phytoextraction, rhizofiltration, use of roots to pick up them, and phytostabilization. So they may ask them in your prelims. They may ask them in the prelims. So we refer them as the process which is involved in phytoremediation. So bioremediation is including plants as well as organisms. Phytoremediation means only plants. Only plants. Then water pollution solutions. You can say waste treatment, solid waste management, effective implementation of laws and regulation, the same thing. Creating awareness among the people, government programs and schemes like wetland rules, national action plan, all these. Then bioremediation, then watershed management. Are these the type of bioremediations? Yes, these are the types of bioremediation, but they are part of bioremediation where plants are used. We refer them as phytoremediation. So remember that bioremediation consists of both in the sense it consists of what we refer them as the microbacteria, and it also consists of the plants. So when the plants are involved there, then we refer that as the phytoremediation. So please remember, bioremediation is a bigger term which includes bacteria, living organisms, as well as plants. And if only plants are used, then we refer that as phytoremediation. So along with that, if there is any oil pollution, now how we control that? Oil pollution. Now the controlling of oil pollution is done by using a bioremediation, that is oil zappers. Oil zapper. So oil zapper means the of bacteria strains of bacteria. They are packed and they are left near the hydrocarbons or the oil sludge, and these bacteria act on them. These bacteria, they act on them, and after that they convert this hydrocarbon, they convert this hydrocarbon into carbon dioxide and water, which can decompose into the water. And this is what we refer them as oil zaffer. And this is the bioremediation, using bacteria to find the solution for the oil pollution. So this is bioremediation. We are talking about oil spills. The one is bioremediation, using the oil zapper. Now, the next one is by using a technology. By using a technology. And these technology consist of many terminologies. The first one is whenever when the large amount of whenever when large amount of the oil is spilled there, then what we will do, we will always use the booms. We will always use first the booms. We'll always use the booms. So these are the booms, which acts as a barrier, which will not allow the oil to spread. It will not allow the oils to spread. So it consolidates the oils there. That is by using the booms. So after that, when the oil is controlled, then you burn that. That is burning in situ. Burning in situ. You burn that, right? Then we use skimmers, which are specially designed to suck up the oil from the water sources. Skimmers, which are used to suck up. Right. So booms can be created by polythenes, and they can be created by synthetic materials, which will not allow the oil to spread. So they are like a barriers which are created. Then skimmers are used where the remaining oil which is left out is absorbed like a vacuum cleaner, like a vacuum cleaner. Right. After that, there is possibility that even in spite of that, you may find a certain amount of pollutants. So in that case, we use the sorbents. And these sorbents, they are like straw, volcanic ash, etc., that absorbs the oil from the waters which are seen. So we can use sorbents also. And in spite of that sorbents, sometimes when small traces are there which cannot be removed, then we use the dispersant. And this dispersant, which does the chemical reaction and separates the oil molecule from the water, remove the oil from water by surface breaking. So it separates the from water oil from water, and this can be sucked up very easily. So these are referred as the ways in which the oil pollution can be controlled. One is by using bioremediation. That is, bioremediation means the bacteria which are used, and remaining are the booms, in situ burning, skimming, dispersion, and what we refer them as the sorbents. See, oil zappers are used at any stage. In the any stage we can use. So that is a different method. That is where we say, if we are using only bioremediation, then oil zapper can be used at any time. If it becomes very worst, if it is very worst, then we can use these technology. Bioremediation can be used at any stage, because that is where they can be seen as controlling the oil pollution. It can be used at any stage. So bioremediation is a different, and this is different approach. Right. Now, important conventions which are associated with that. One is the Minamata Convention. Minamata Convention is an international treaty which is designed to phase out the release of mercury and mercury compounds. And it entered into force on August 16, 2017, and India ratified that in the year 2018. So remember, Minamata Convention talks about reducing mercury and mercury compounds. Then Basel Convention talks about control of trans-border movement of hazardous waste. Yes, amalgam you can say. Right. So trans-border movement of hazardous wastes and their disposal. And this entered into force in the year 5th May 1992. So it is the control of trans-border movement of hazardous waste and their disposal. Hazardous waste and their disposal. Right. Trans-border movement, that is moving from country A to country B. So here we are talking about hazardous waste. Hazardous waste. So generally the wastes are sent from country A to country B. It may consist of e-waste also. It may consist of e-waste also. And in the year 2021, they have banned internationally the hazardous single use plastic, right? Hazardous waste means which are harmful. It's not chemicals, hazardous wastes, including chemical. It is a bigger term. Waste, it can be plastic, medical waste, biomedical waste, any type of waste. We refer them as hazardous waste. Then, then we talk about something called as the Stockholm Convention. Now, the Stockholm Convention, it is a global treaty to protect the environment from persistent organic pollutant, POP. And these persistent organic pollutants are those pollutants which are very toxic to humans and wildlife. They can last for many years in the environment, and they can bioaccumulate in the food chain, and they are transported to very large distances through the airs. We refer them as persistent organic pollutants. So Stockholm Convention is associated with the persistent organic pollutants, which consist of three annexes. Annex 1, which can be eliminated, Annex 2, restricted, and Annex 3, which are produced and released unintentionally. Unintentionally. We refer this as the Stockholm Convention. And the last convention is Rotterdam Convention. So it is prior informed consent procedure for certain hazardous chemicals and pesticides. If this country A wants to send the waste to country A to country B, so this country has to give the details of what it is sending. This country has to give the details of what amount of products it is sending, and this country B has to give the consent to that. Once it has given the consent, then only this country can send them across their boundaries to country B. So it is prior informed consent procedure for certain hazardous chemicals and pesticides in the international trade. So when the country A is trading certain, it has to take a permission from B before sending that to the country B. And here it is administered by FAO and United Nations Environment Program, and it entered in the force in 2004. And it has an Annex 3, which includes many types of industrial chemicals and pesticides. So this is about Rotterdam Convention, right? So we'll conclude a class here. Apologies that I took 5 minutes more. So another small topics are there. One is forest, then environment impact assessment, forest environment impact assessment, right? And then coastal regulation zone. Three small topics are there. So I'll be taking them 1 3 hours somewhere in the Saturday, not now, maybe this Saturday or maybe somewhere. So it will be intimated to you all. So one Saturday, please bear me for another 3 hours or 3.5 hours. So I'll be taking up the remaining topics: environment impact assessment, forest, and the coastal regulation zones. They are very small topics, yet important for your exam point of view. And apologies that I took 5 minutes more. So very sincere apologies for this. And we'll meet up for one more time, maybe this Saturday or maybe when the time is feasible to that. And then in that case we will discuss the remaining three topics, and we'll cover them, which will be synced with your entire syllabus criteria. Until then, take care, revise and update your content. And very soon we'll meet up to complete the remaining portions there. Take care and bye bye. Right. So if any things are there, you can drop a mail to me. So you can take a mail from SME. You can take my mail ID from SME. And if any concerns are there, drop. I'll revert back to you. I'll revert back to you. And don't get much stress. These topics needs always updations. Don't get much stress. Maintain your flow. Revise them properly. And whatever contents are there, update them with your current affairs. And another 3 hours or 4 hours I'll take and I'll complete that. We will complete that without any hurry worry. Till then, bye bye and take care. So my mail ID, the SME will give you. They will give you my mail ID. See, Saturday you will be having the classes, not this, not this. You will be having other classes. We'll check the time within which we can take that, because this is an extra class. So I had to sit with the coordinators, and based on that, we will take the class. It will not disturb your any schedule. Right. So we'll work out on that. We'll work out on that, and we'll try to settle how we can settle the problem. Yeah, we'll see that, Karan, whether 10 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m. We'll check that. We'll check the feasibility, and based on that, we will work out on that. Based on that, we will work out on that, right? So it will not disturb any of your schedules. So we'll see that your feasibility, and based on that, we will work out and we will take up the classes. Don't get much stress. It's my duty to complete the entire portion. ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ ಗಪ್ಪ ಹೆಂಗ್ ಒಮ್ಮೆ ಕಲಿತಾನೆ ಇವನು ಸ್ಟಾಪ್ ಮಾಡಿ